What's up, guys? My name is Nick. So I'm the CTO at 4 startups right now. The biggest one's doing 5 million ARR. We got about 7,000 customers. And I also have a cold email agency, which I plan to scale to 1,000 customers in the next 24 months. And all of that with a team of basically one dev, which is me. So currently this is the situation. It's a lot of responsibility for one person, but it's also very challenging because I'm constantly reinventing my workload in order to move myself to a new level of abstraction, right? I want to have as much leverage as possible and be able to give my agents the tools that they need to help me in my work. We have very much moved away from vibe coding. You know, it's kind of an insult today when you tell somebody that they're vibe coding when they're spending, I think my bill this month for Cursor is about $8,000. And yeah, so we moved away from vibe coding to context engineering or agentic engineering. And now we're moving into something new, which is harness engineering. And today I will show you guys what that actually means. What does it mean to build harnesses for your agents to operate in? It's a very new concept. It's something that might require you to completely forget everything you know about development, which for me, it's easy because I dropped out of high school and I don't know shit about shit. So I just learn as I go. But yeah, I find like the more you think you know, the more you realize that you don't in this new era. Yesterday, I decided to open source something that I've been using internally to help me do my work, which is what I call a unified MCP gateway. I'll read you guys what this is, and this is one of the pieces that I'll be showing you today. And I'll show you how I use this in my work, where I basically have, thousands of agents running often simultaneously, and I don't have the time to look at everything they're doing. So does everybody here know, just quick show of hands, what an MCP is? Who knows what an MCP is? Raise your hand. Okay, so about 30% of the room knows what an MCP is. Okay, who knows what an API is? Okay, cool. So an MCP is an API for agents. You take an API, you wrap it in a protocol that you can give to an agent, which is basically like a different URL format, okay? And then the agent can use your APIs inside the chat without having to use the terminal, okay? Pretty simple. So a big issue that we have so I'll read you guys what we did. So why we built this. We run agents across dozens of environments: Cursor, Claude Code Desktop, Open Code, custom bots, Pi, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Every environment needs its own MCP connections, its own auth, its own config. This breaks constantly. And when an API spec changes in from one provider, I have to update it in 1,000 different places. It's very, very bad. Okay, so there's re-auth problems. You constantly have to re-auth into accounts because MCP is not a stable service. And actually most providers, like if you ever use the Notion MCP inside of Claude, or if you ever use the Slack MCP, you'll notice that they're, one, very limited. There's a lot of things that they don't let you do. And two, they often break because Notion's gonna make an update to their MCP and it's gonna destroy your authentication where you'll need to re-log in. And if you haven't connected in 100 places, good luck. It's gonna be very annoying. So one thing that my system solves is re-authentication. You log in one place and it stays on, okay? Second thing, context window bloat. Has anyone ever received a $1,000 bill from Cursor here? No? It's fucking painful, okay? He gave me $20 in credits today and I'm like, brother, that's like 10 minutes of coding. Like it's really bad. Once your code base grows and once you have hundreds of tools, they use a lot of context. Every prompt you send, like my minimum prompt is like 100K tokens. It's ridiculous, right? But this grows as the complexity of your systems grow and you need to learn to manage that. One thing that I've done is I've disconnected all my MCPs from Cursor and I've connected my unified MCP. My unified MCP has only 4 tools. It can list plugins, it can search tools, it can get tool schema, and it can call a tool. So instead of having 50 MCP servers connected to Cursor, and every time that Cursor is like, what MCPs do I have? He just sees all of them. This has one MCP, which tells him, hey, if you need a tool, ask me, I'll find it for you. And it's very simple, it doesn't cost a lot. And Cursor just knows that he can always ask this one tool to show more. And then there's a drill down mechanism, okay? So the second thing is multi-accounts. All of my clients for the cold email agency have either HubSpot or Calendly or whatever, and I make money every time I book them an appointment, okay? So I have like 10, 20 different Calendly accounts. In the current model of doing things, you would have to have 20 Calendly MCPs stacked one on top of the other on your Claude account or your Cursor account, and it would just be hell, okay? It's useless. There's no one MCP gateway, multi-accounts. Nobody does that. Why? Because they've never seen the problem. They don't feel the pain. I feel the pain every single day. So what I did is I built one tool, and then you can have multiple accounts for the same tool. And when the MCP asks, hey, I need to send a message or I need to book an appointment, the MCP, the agent thinks, oh, on which account? And then he sees all the accounts and he can decide which account to use. The third thing is this also serves as an API bridge, right? Very often, if you're doing what I'm doing, which is you're dumping huge requirements to your agents and you're like, hey, run the account for this agent, like run this client, right? Here's everything you need to do, all the tools, run this client. Oftentimes, your agent is going to try to code things. So let's say he needs to send 1,000 emails every single day, right? And for that, he needs to like find leads, enrich them, do this, do that. He's not gonna, for every single lead, use an MCP tool call and do like blah, blah, blah. It would cost way more than your client is paying you, right, to do that. So instead, what the agents do, they're very intelligent. They're gonna try to use the API to build code so that the code is gonna run these repeatable functions because they're always the same. Currently, the problem is your MCP is just an MCP. And if you want to build an API, you have to give the API spec to your agent and let the agent figure out the API all over again. But when you built the MCP tool, which I build my own MCPs for every system, you already did that. So why not just give the agent the ability to use the MCP bridge, the MCP server that you have, as an API bridge? And this is what this does as well. So instead of, let's say all my clients have like 10 tools that we use for each one of them, and each client is its own repo with its own agent, with its own stuff. Every single one of them, instead of having like connected to Instantly, connected to LinkedIn, connected to Notion, connected to Slack, and it's all like different connections, it's one connection to the gateway. That's it. One API key for this agent that has access to the tools they need, to the accounts of the clients that they need to have access to, and nothing else. And they just have one API. Something else I did, I started including tools which are like how to. So the tool is called How to Use Me, and it's inside the MCP. So when the agent is like, what should I do here? I'm not sure how it works. He just calls the how to, and the agents love doing that. When they see like how to do something, they're very curious. They're gonna go and read it. So they always read that, and I basically just tell them, hey, this is how this should work. And they use that. The other thing which is really important is observability. If you're running anything at scale, I don't know how many of you guys run things at scale. When it breaks, you don't know where it broke, right? It's easy when it's all running on your computer and you have like, all the time in the world. But when you're running huge distributed systems with thousands and thousands and thousands of customers and something breaks and you start getting phone calls from 20 different people, you want to be able to tell like this what happened. And this is built into the system. I'm going to show you guys. This is a web dashboard that you have access to it. Very easy. I'm going to have to change all my URLs after this presentation. Disconnected from the internet. Just connect to my phone. So, okay. All right. So here we have all the different keys. I'll walk you through that, but I'll just show you guys the logging system. This is really important. So here you can pick any of the keys. So let's say all except WhatsApp, which is my friend Sam's key. He has access to everything except my WhatsApp account. And then here are all the plugins. So I can say AI Arc, and then I can click filter, and then it's going to show me absolutely every single API call he has done to AI Arc with this key, when it happened, how long it took in milliseconds for the call to complete, exactly what was sent, and exactly what was received back in the response. And this is also an MCP tool. So your agent, if you have a question like, hey, why did we just spend $500 on Clay credits today? And your agent can just go and look at all the requests that were done by everybody who has access to the key and tell you right away, why did you just spend $500 today? And this is the first time I have ever seen all of these things combined in one gateway, which serves both as an API, as an MCP, as an audit log, something that you can use to give your employees access to all their internal tools in a very, very, very simple management system. Something else I really like about it, which I use all the time, is so I have this CI bot, which has access to my WhatsApp account because the customer service team keeps sending me messages. And so if I click here, this bot only has access to certain chats. I don't want him to look at the DMs I have with my girlfriend or what my mom is sending me or what my accounting is sending me, right? I just want him to be scoped. So the code itself, and here it's a rule inside the spec of the key. So here you see the key, you see what it has access to. It has access to Linear as an admin, to WhatsApp as an admin, and nothing else. And here you see the accounts, the JID, which is like WhatsApp's account ID, of the chats and the people that it can read. And it's really cool because I can limit it at the code level. And this is why we're not talking about vibe coding anymore, right? We're not even talking about agentic engineering anymore. We're really talking about building harnesses so that your agents simply cannot fuck up, right? You build the constraint so that even if they try to go gangster on you, they can't go gangster on you, right? They just don't have the permissions. The code of the tools that they use to access your stuff is restricted in a way that simply prevents catastrophes, and it helps you give them the maximum amount of power that you can give them while completely removing, as much of the risk as possible on your side. And this is the era of engineering we're entering into, where I'm currently doing the work of about 20 to 30 people, and I'm getting compensated for it, obviously, and this is why I'm able to rack up a huge bill. However, I wouldn't be able to do this if I was not thinking in a way where I am constantly looking, how do I containerize the agents and how do I give them an environment where they can live, breathe, do their job without risking my own ass, right? And this is the new era we live in. It's this new concept of building harnesses for agents. And this MCP is just one of the many tools that you will need entering this new era. I'll show you guys something else. I think I showed you pretty much everything here. There's a lot of other like side features to this bridge that I built. It's a very powerful thing. It's open source, and I strongly suggest if any of you guys are using MCPs that you absolutely should fork this and, either use it or fork it, improve it. I don't care. Just use it as a baseline. I built this for myself because I really needed it, and there's nothing like it. There's a few MCP management solutions out there. They charge you an arm and a leg. They fucking suck. And, we're in the open source era, so feel free to use this. Yeah. Now, I'm going to show you something really quickly, which is how I actually I'll give you an example. So here I have a Pi agent. Who has heard of Pi? It's this thing. It's shittycodingagent.ai, and it's built to be the most unrestricted CLI for agentic coding. You can connect anything to it. Cursor, obviously Cursor CLI. You can connect Gemini, Claude Code. You can use their subscriptions on it. So Claude Code, ChatGPT Codex. If you're paying $20 a month for ChatGPT, you can use it in Pi. What I really like about Pi is that I can build a Pi chat inside a repo, and then when I'm ready to go and put this on a virtual machine, I can export the entire Pi chat and just re-import it on my VM, which it sounds very trivial, but when you're running small microservice containers for your clients where you want to have agents that are fine-tuned to do certain things, this is really important because I do the work once, I engineer the context of my agent once, and then I can just export and replicate him, which, if you're doing any kind of it's one thing to do coding, right? And to use coding agents, but it's another thing to have agents that actually talk to your customers. And with agents that talk to your customers, you want to essentially replicate that same agent across so that you can maintain the same, pretty much everything, right? So this is a cool thing about Pi. It's very lightweight. It reduces the context used by your prompts because it's naked, right? So Claude Code, blah, blah, blah. They add a bunch of things to every prompt you make. Pi removes all of it. So you get the full context window, which is cool for the nerds. Yeah. So what I do is I set up VMs in the cloud. Every client gets its own VM. Every VM gets its own key with its own permissions, which has access to certain tools, certain things, certain accounts, blah, blah, blah. And I spin up a Pi agent on every single one of them, which has access to my Claude subscription, my Cursor subscription, my ChatGPT subscription, my Gemini subscription. And then for each different thing, I'm using a different subscription depending on what it is. And essentially that's how I containerize them. And then I have a bunch of these virtual machines. Every time I onboard a new client, it's a new virtual machine with its own address, with its own email, with its own blah, 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 and its own accesses through my unified MCP bridge. So that's it, guys.
Questions for Nick?
No questions?
I have one. So, did you actually measure the cost reduction? And did you have any way to measure after implementing your new system how much you saved?
In tokens or in accidents?
Whatever. Both.
In accidents, I'm saving so much because for every single service I use, right? We have services where we're buying leads from them, right? And a new client comes in and I'm like, hey, find me 5,000 lawyers in New York that are below the age of 40 and blah, blah, blah. And he's going to go and try to find that through different queries, and it can cost me a lot of money. So what I did is I restricted him in certain ways through the APIs themselves. So when he shoots an API request to the endpoint, certain things need to be true in order for that to cost me tokens. Otherwise, I just limit the max results to 1, and then he can get his sample, make sure his shit works, and then continue. This is something that you can't do without a bridge like this. Because if you were to query directly the API of the provider, well, they don't offer you that, right? They're just you want 10,000 records? No problem. It's $500. Have a good day, right? But my agent is too stupid to think about, hey, this is going to cost $500. And what a beginner would do, or me a couple months ago, I would try to prompt that into the AI. I would be like, hey, you're going to cost me $500 if you do this. Make sure you don't do it, right? And that's just come on, man, it's a very stupid way of doing things, right? If I give my credit card to my girlfriend and I'm like, hey, there's a limit of $10,000 on this thing, but like you need to be careful, okay? Like you can't spend it, right? I mean, she's much smarter than the agents. I'm sure she's going to respect my limit, but you never know, right? The agents make mistakes, they hallucinate, they end up costing you a lot of money. So in mistakes, I'm saving, it's like 80% savings, especially on those like pay-per-use things. In terms of context itself, I'm saving roughly, my context window has diminished. So I had about 3,000 tools in Cursor. And then I built this, now I have like 12, right? And so the cost saving on that is absolutely huge. I think it's like 30% less tokens that I'm burning on every prompt.